As you go about your daily life, there's a constant presence lurking in the shadows, watching your every move and collecting information about you. From surveillance cameras on street corners to tracking your online activity, the government is now constantly monitoring its citizens. But why? Is it to protect us from danger or to exert control over our every decision? Whatever the reason, one thing is clear. Government surveillance is a divisive and controversial issue that raises questions about privacy, freedom, and the role of the state in our lives. But before we go down this rabbit hole, if you're new here, I'm Matt from Liquid Loans, and in this one, let's find out about one major factor that's already here and that could be the death of financial freedom as we know it. We used to have freedom of privacy, and we still kind of do in the analog world. The Fourth Amendment of the US Constitution protects its citizens against unreasonable search and seizure. It's illegal to go through people's mailboxes or search their homes without a court order. But in the digital world, it's much different, where governments and large institutions have access to every email you've ever sent, every text message, every social media post, and all under the name of protecting you. The next great step towards losing all of your privacy and freedom comes in the form of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs for short. Imagine a world where you need permission to make any purchase, where your every move is tracked and recorded in a database controlled by your government. In this world, you may be required to buy what your government wants or prevented from buying what it doesn't want. Your money could also become a tool for control rather than a source of personal freedom. And as crazy as this sounds, this kind of world may be closer than you think. In fact, many aspects of it are already here. 19 out of the 20 G20 countries have either deployed or are currently in research and development of CBDCs. These include the United States, Great Britain, India, Australia, China, Nigeria, and many other major global players. CBDCs are definitely a hot topic right now, and citizens around the world have caught on to the fact that their governments are trending towards being more authoritarian and dystopian. And if this topic is of concern to you, help us spread the message as much as possible, whether it's sharing this video or simply liking and subscribing, because the more awareness we can stimulate in the collective consciousness, the better prepared we'll be when our freedoms start to be encroached on more and more. Sigrid Kaag, the finance minister of the Netherlands, has introduced a new set of laws to Dutch Parliament that aim to prevent illegal money laundering. However, the laws have faced harsh criticism for potentially infringing on personal privacy, as they would require all Dutch banks to track and record transactions above €100. Currently, the limit is €10,000 or more. This would give the Dutch government access to a significant amount of personal data on its citizens, which could be accessed at any time without a warrant. In the US, the Biden administration is also seeking similar laws that would lower the bank reporting limit from $10,000 to just $600. This has been characterized as a massive search warrant without an actual warrant. But US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has dismissed these concerns, stating that the collection of this data is simply a few pieces of information about individual bank accounts. Why would they want this information at all? This raises the question, what if the government did not just have access to transactions above $600, but had access to all of your transactions all of the time? And not only could they just see them, they would actually have the ability to program your money to be able to or not be able to purchase certain things. They'd know who you'd sent money to or receive money from, and be able to control what you can do with your digital currency. Blockchains were invented for censorship resistance and to make sure that nobody can take your money and decide what you can do with it. CBDCs are crypto, but a totally centralized version where central banks and governments decide who you can send and receive money from, what you can do with your money, and where you can spend it. In addition, the central issuer of the currency would certainly be able to print new money out of thin air and spend it on whatever they wanted, contributing to massive decreases in purchasing power, but this is a practice we are all too familiar with rampant inflation. Not too long ago, CBDCs were considered hypothetical, but today they are on an ever-approaching reality. In late 2022, the Federal Reserve launched a trial run for its CBDC with support from institutions such as MasterCard, Citibank, and HSBC. However, recently a US Treasury official said CBDCs are a long way from being a reality, and they won't launch without proper clear support from Congress and the executive branch. Now, could this be an attempt to put us all at ease before dropping the CBDC on our heads without proper time to react or prepare? The actions of the rest of the world would support this notion. According to the Atlantic Council CBDC tracker, 11 countries have launched CBDCs, including the Bahamas, Jamaica, and Nigeria. 17 countries are on a pilot version of their CBDC, including Russia, China, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Iran, South Africa, Sweden, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and Australia. And 33 countries are currently in development, including the United States, Canada, Spain, France, Germany, the UK, Brazil, Turkey, Indonesia, Japan, and Taiwan. So let's be clear, it's not if, but when. So, despite reassurance from the US Treasury, countries appear to be in an arms race to launch CBDCs and increase their control over digital payments. So, what are the countries saying is the reason they are all developing CBDCs? I'll give you a hint. It's the same reason they give you when exerting any form of control over their citizens. The word is safety, and all the countries seem to be reading from the same script. Rishi Sunak, the new Prime Minister of the UK, said that the CBDC would be a safe and secure new form of currency that would foster inclusion. According to the US Federal Reserve, a central bank digital currency would be the safest form of money available, offering an improvement in safety compared to the current monetary system. The International Monetary Fund also states that CBDCs will be more secure than the current money we use and offer greater safety due to their reduced volatility compared to current cryptocurrencies. Most people, when asked, have a much more cynical view of CBDCs and they think it's all about control. But I want to know what you think about them. Are CBDCs an attempt by governments to exert more control over us and extract even more resources? Or are they an honest attempt by benevolent governments to enhance our well-being? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The most concerning part of CBDCs is that it would give governments the power that they've never had before in history, which is access to all of your financial data. In addition, governments would have the ability to program that money to do what they want you to do with it. A CBDC could be potentially programmed to restrict how it is used by individuals. For example, the government could limit the types of items that can be purchased with a CBDC to only those that they deem essential. They could also restrict the amount of money that can be spent in a given period of time or require all of the funds to be spent by a certain date. These measures could be taken to control inflation or regulate the economy in some way. It's important to note, however, that these ideas are just speculative and it's not clear if any government would actually implement such measures. It's also possible that a government could use a central bank digital currency as a tool to stimulate the economy by encouraging citizens to spend their money. For example, the government could set expiration dates for savings accounts denominated in a CBDC, which could then motivate people to spend their money rather than risk losing it, which could potentially lead to an increase in economic activity as money flows more freely through the economy. A CBDC could also potentially be used to monitor and regulate an individual's carbon emissions. For example, if a government implements a personal carbon limit for each citizen, a CBDC could be used to track an individual's purchases and calculate their carbon usage. If an individual exceeds their monthly carbon limit, the government could use the CBDC to block them from making certain purchases, such as gas for their car or a plane ticket, or even charge them fines for exceeding this limit. This measure could be taken in an effort to reduce carbon emissions and combat climate change. These two examples would not be without public protests, but if we look at recent history, major governments have already shown the ability to censor what their citizens can or can't do with their money. And regardless of what you think about the Canadian truckers who protested restrictions, the government froze their bank accounts without warning. And even more recently in Nigeria, ATM withdrawals were severely limited to discourage the use of cash and to promote the usage of their new CBDC, the e-Naira. So this leads me to the most important point of this video, and that's the ability for CBDCs to limit freedom of expression of the people. In China, a version of a central bank digital currency is already in use, and individuals' social credit scores are linked to their bank accounts. If individuals say or do things that are deemed inappropriate or critical of the government, their access to certain financial services, such as buying a plane or train ticket or certain goods, may be restricted. This measure has already been implemented by the Chinese government for some of its citizens. Furthermore, in Sweden, the government has voted to make it illegal for journalists to criticise the government, and in Australia, there's a new proposed law that would allow government ministers to sue people for expressing critical views. As previously stated in Canada, the government has taken steps to restrict the access of peaceful protesters by disabling their own money, and the use of a CBDC would further the government's ability to limit such freedom of expression by limiting people's access to their own money. So now that you've heard all of this, do you think CBDCs are a serious problem, or is it just more fear porn? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and if you like content like this, do hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new videos on the channel. You can also tap the like button and share the video with someone who you think it may benefit. I'm Matt from Liquid Loans, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.